Shalom Aleichem, everyone. Erev Tov. And it's wonderful to have everyone back. And we'll begin our weekly story. And immediate afterwards, as our custom is, we'll have the Dvar Malchus Shir from the Rebbe Shlita Melech Ha'Moshiach, the Sichos of the Rebbe Shlita Melech Ha'Moshiach. But as a prelude, the miracle stories that we are experiencing, that we have experienced, there's nothing to compare to in the entire history of the Jewish nation, to say the least. We'll start with stories in actuality from the Gaza war, and then we'll go to the stories of the actions of the Rebbe Shlita Melech Ha'Moshiach here and now on the universal basis. But first, at least two stories from the war. First story begins with a battalion that arrived after a day's activities, war, and they found a place which was meant to be, or seemed to have been, safe in order to go and to take a rest. So they camped out. And one of the soldiers, who was an observant soldier, saw that the sun was setting, so he decided to immediately go aside and to pray mincha, the afternoon prayer. He goes and he starts making his preparations, and as they were used to, all the prayers out in the battlefield, even though they might be in a situation where it seems to be peaceful, they pray with their guns slung over their shoulder. And halachically, it's also in these kind of situations permissible. And he's about to take the 3 steps back to start Shmoneh Esrei, to start the Amidah prayer. And from the corner of his eye, he sees a metallic reflection that's reflecting the sun into his eye. And he turns around and he sees that there's a terrorist that had crawled out of a tunnel. And these tunnels are so treacherous. It's impossible to imagine how these terrorists come out from the tunnels in a manner that it's like impossible to even imagine. So he sees a terrorist and the tip of an RPG sticking out of a tunnel. He doesn't think twice. He immediately removes the safety from his rifle. He aims and he shoots the terrorist. And then after that, he shouts to, there was a shot that was sounded. He shouts to his friends that there's a terrorist, and he's literally maybe 20 meters, 25 meters away. 20 meters. It was like, he was able to see the reflection of the RPG coming out of the tunnel, and they should be careful and take a look. And they checked. There was only that one terrorist that was shot dead. And they all were like, it was remarkable. It was an unbelievable miracle. And everyone looked at the soldier and they thanked him, and they said to him, "We realize that it wasn't the fact that you were so fast to go and to react to what you saw. We realize that it was in the merit of the prayer of Mincha that you were about to pray." And there and then, they made a resolution that the next day, the entire platoon is going to daven Mincha. Observant, non-observant, they're all going to daven Mincha in honor of the fact that Hashem saved their lives today. That was the first story. The second story, it comes to express how the diligence and the fact that that there are people that are fighting, and the protection of those soldiers in the middle of the battlefield in Gaza doesn't necessarily come from around the environment of where the soldiers are necessarily, but it can come from miles and miles away. There's a story that was told, an intelligence soldier, and he was he's a senior commander. He was about to clock out from his post, but then for some reason something bothered him, and he decided to go and to take another look at his monitor. Now, well, without getting into all the details, the intelligence has the ability to monitor what's going on to a certain extent in the battlefield, in on a live basis. So he goes to the monitor and he looks and he sees that opposite opposite a battalion of soldiers that are progressing in Gaza, there's an enormous amount of terrorists, of Hamas terrorists, that are all set up in pits to ambush this battalion. And he immediately got on the wireless to go in to notify the battalion that they should stop. They shouldn't progress anymore. And then he went and he got on to his commanders, who got in contact with the Israeli Air Force. The Air Force sent an attack drone and removed all the terrorist fighters that were waiting to ambush the battalion. So when we're talking about Hashgacha Protis, or divine providence, we're talking about the fact that Hashem goes and gives this ability to each and every one of us. A person can be miles away and can be monitoring what's going on the other side of the world, not just from Israel into Gaza. And here, this was an outright miracle from Hashem, and it showed this senior officer. He said he did not know why he didn't just clock out and go home. He finished his shift. He said it was a power from above, and after the miracle, he said, I not only believe, I know that it was a power from above that forced me to go back to the monitor in order to go and to see what was the situation. And through this, he had the merit of saving all these many soldiers they were progressing to go into to protect us, to protect the Jewish nation. Let's get to, from these incredible miracles from the war, we'll get to one or two universal miracles that are happening right in our backyard. One of the people, one of the kibbutzim that was hit terrible. The entire kibbutz was burned down. Just literally. The people they summarized that perhaps it would take 3 or 4 years to go and to build back the kibbutz. This is kibbutz Be'eri. Be'eri. In Hebrew, it means my well. But when we're talking about this kibbutz, they went through Gehinnom. And anyone that was able to be saved, and there were many that were saved, they look back and they see how they were miraculously taken out by angels from the teeth of the terrible Hamas terrorists. One of these people, who wasn't as fortunate as the others, even though his life was saved, he lost Rahman al-Islam, he lost a leg, but everything else about him he was able to be saved, and he also lost his wife and one of his daughters. Hashem should watch over us, and we should never know of such kind of situations. But he was being interviewed, this is the way I was told. He was being interviewed on the Israeli radio, and they were asking him about his views in regard to the future and how he feels about returning to the kibbutz and how he feels about rebuilding the kibbutz. And with all the against all the odds that he was able to go into, he didn't perish in the war, and he despite all the turmoil and the terrible anguish, terrible. A person to lose his own wife and one of his daughters and his leg. And on top of it all, he is a farmer. He works in agriculture. A farmer with one leg, to walk around in the fields, to drive a tractor. I mean, it literally took him out of where he used to be. So he was asked, what are his perspectives of going and rebuilding Be'eri? And is he going to return? So he says like this. He says that out of the 1,000 people that occupied the kibbutz before the war, there was 10% that perished during the war from those 1,000 people, and another 10% that amongst the talks that they had, that seemingly doesn't think that they're going to return to the kibbutz. Okay, wow, that's like 20% down. And then he says, and as far as he himself is concerned, he definitely is very optimistic about going and returning to the kibbutz and rebuilding the kibbutz and to rebuild the people that lived in the kibbutz. But then he says, but that's not the topic. That's not the issue. So the interviewer says, okay, if that's not the issue, so what is the issue? The issue is that you have to have not people that want to return to rebuild the kibbutz, but you have to have the minimal needs in order to go and to keep the protection, to keep the security of the people that are going to rebuild the kibbutz. So the interviewer says, and what do you propose? So he says like this. He says, before the war, what I thought, and this is the ongoing view of his kibbutz and many other settlements in that area, because these people initially, a lot of them come from a leftist political view, thinking very sentimentally in regard to the Arabs and the people in Gaza. And he said, initially, I thought, this is what he says, I thought that if you go and you give them a place to live and you give them a source of income, you give them the ability to be profitable and to live a good life, so we'll be able to live side by side as was pre the October 7th war. Seemingly, it wasn't such a great life. They were being shot at and attacked on a regular basis. Sirens were being sounded and missiles were being shot on a regular basis. Even on October 7th, that was the fact. But he says after the war, he comes and he says he realized that that's not the point. What is the point? He says like this, and this is again a person that had a extreme leftist view and perspective before the war. He comes and he says, these are his conclusions. The Hamas and the Arabs in general, they're not coming to attack in order to go and to take some land. It's not their problem. The land is not their problem. So what is the problem? The problem is that there are people that are sitting in this land and they are Jews. And it's not only the problem with Jews. because when they went and they attacked on October 7th, they attacked Jews and they attacked people from out of Israel, people from Thailand that worked on the kibbutz. Uh, we're talking about people that went and they attacked with no reason whatsoever. They have their land, they have a profitable position where they can go and they can live a good life. That isn't where they are able to suffice with. They can't stay that way. So what are you supposed to do with them? The interviewer asked. So he says they have to be literally, they have to be removed. They have to be deported. He didn't say to go out and to kill them, God forbid. He said they should be deported. They should be removed and taken to other Arab countries around the world that will accept them. Because here, opposite Israel, they're not going to be able to go and to continue. We see time and time again. It's not any type of agreement that we make with them. It's not the amount of money that we give them. It's not the amount of options that they might have financially and culturally, giving them schools, giving them hospitals. You see, they turned their schools and hospitals into army bases in order to go and to blow up people in Israel. God Rahman al-Islam. This was his conclusion. The interviewer asked him, "Tell me, are all the people on the kibbutz agreeing with your opinion?" So he says, "No, they aren't. There are those that do agree with me, but not everyone agrees." And he said, that's not my problem either. The issue is a fact. Whether people agree or not, that's already another problem. But the fact is that this is where we as a nation are standing. And we have to wake up, smell the coffee, and we have to realize it, because there is no other solution to this situation, to this problem. Our stories are not going political. But right now, the last, and this is the universal factor of what the Rebbe says, we have not only the revelation, not only the essence of Mashiach, but we have the revelation of Mashiach. And the Rebbe says, how do we see the revelation of Mashiach here in the world? Through the actions of Mashiach in the world. One of the most universal actions that we've been witnessing in the world is the entire government turnover in the United States. One of the major proclamations that the incoming president Donald Trump makes is that if the hostages are not, if they're not given over, if they're not returned, so the people in Gaza are going to see all Gehenna break loose in front of them. That's a pretty that's a statement that has a lot behind it, and he doesn't speak empty words as we see in the past. And now today, I was told that the vice president, his name is Vance or whatever his name is, he's not that popular, but he went and he explained it on Fox News. What is Mashiach coming and activating in the world? He explained that if the hostages are not returned, so then the United States is going to enable Israel to go and to totally remove all the last maybe 3 battalions that remain of the Hamas terrorists, Rahman al-Islam, and to remove all their leadership as well, neutralizing, meaning that they're going to be going to whatever next world they are meant to be going to, and this is the bottom line. And this is coming directly from the empire, the the government Hameshel Bakipa, that is at the helm of the empire, that is at the helm of the rulership of the entire world. Then all of a sudden, And this is very similar to what we hear the Alter Rebbe says, and the Tzemach Tzedek mentions that on Rosh Hashanah, on New Year's, and we're talking about the Jewish Rosh Hashanah, Jewish New Year's. So so in heaven, the entire movements of the governments and the kings, it says specifically, the movements and the conduct of the kings are being moved around like on a chessboard, literally like that. And what do we see? And it's incredible. It's incredible. All of a sudden, right after, a parallel to the new year in the secular new year. So there's again a statement, a proclamation that's made that the map of the world is going to change. Who says this? Again, the incoming president, Trump. He says the United States is going to. These are things that are total extreme. We never heard things like this since, I don't know, since the United States was founded and they became 50 or 52 states. The United States is going to purchase the following countries: Canada, Greenland. They're just gonna, they're gonna become part of the United States. That there's going to be such a universal change in the maps. This is unheard of. These are the actions of Moshiach. Last but not least, everyone heard Rahman Litzlan of the terrible fires in Los Angeles, in southern Los Angeles, in California. Baruch Hashem, we have to give thanks to Hashem for all those that survived the fire. There were many that perished, and our hearts go out to their families and so on. It's a really terrible situation. But first of all, we have to realize that there are, even in the midst of all these traumatic happenings, there are miracles that are happening as well. And someone pointed out to me, the major heart of the fire is, I don't know what the situation, if they were able to contain it yet. Yesterday they weren't able even to contain it. Is in Pacific Palisades. That's off the. And I personally, I know the shliach that lives there, Rabbi Shur, and someone showed me a picture today of the Chabad house in Pacific Palisades. The Chabad house is 100% contained, intact. Not a flame touched it. Not a flame touched it. How can this be? You tell me. I'm not coming to say that the others were meant to, God forbid, to be burnt down. All the other homes, there were homes of people told me, homes of celebrities, movie stars, really, really expensive, big homes. People, simple people from the average citizen that lives in California. All the homes were burnt down, and the Chabad house stands. The second thing is, and it was again also brought to my attention today, and with this we'll be finishing our stories for today. There was a grandson of a Holocaust survivor. Now this grandson lives in that area in Pacific Palisades, and he says that he was given by his grandmother a menorah that was saved, that was salvaged from World War II, from the hands of the Germans, Yimach Shemam V'Zichram. And his grandmother brought it here to the United States, and she lived her last days, and she wanted to pass it on to her grandson. She gave it to her grandson, and she told the horrifying story behind it, and how there was the miracle that Hashem saved her and saved the menorah with her, and they had it in their home as a memory of the fact that their grandmother was saved, and as a memory of the salvation of the Jewish nation after 6 million perished in the Second World War. The fires lapped up the entire area of Pacific Palisades. He, the grandson, decided at the last minute that they should evacuate. So they evacuated together with his wife and their children to a place that was only 20 minutes away, but it was 20 minutes away in a safe and sound place from the fires, to his wife's sister, and that's where they stayed until things calmed down. Apparently today, in their area where they lived, things calmed down, at least as far as the fire was concerned, and they were able to go into salvage and to see what was going on in their home after it was burnt down. Everything was gone. Everything was burnt. There was one thing that remained in the home: the menorah that menorah that managed to get out of the Holocaust, from the out of the teeth of the German Nazis, Yimach Shemam. And this is the same menorah that came together with their grandmother, that didn't perish and lived on to have not only children but grandchildren. This is the same menorah that, literally, this is what the grandson said, the same menorah that stands, they went and they shined it up, and stands proudly today, coming and testifying that Am Yisrael Chai. Yechi Adonenu Moreinu V'Rabbeinu HaMelech HaMoshiach Chai V'Kayam Le'olam V'ed. Amen.